All right. Good evening and welcome back to a surprise episode 2.5 of the Coffee and Cups podcast. I'm back in Chicago. My voice is mostly off the fritz, but regardless, you're stuck with me tonight. I tried to record this Tuesday night and my voice was too shot from Saturday. Tried it twice last night. I actually recorded two full episodes and both of the files got corrupted. So I'm here Thursday night trying to get this for you guys, trying to get the content out for you. So bear with me. We just finished up an incredible week one of the NFL season, an incredible week two of the college football season. So just wanted to bring you some thoughts from the weekend and really prime you for this coming weekend's episode where we'll have a lot of different things going on. We got week two of the NFL, week three of college football, obviously. Tomorrow morning, the NHL prospect tournament start. We got training camp for the NHL next week. The fall seasons, the winter seasons are in full swing coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I could not be more excited for myself, for one, to consume all of these sports that I love, but for two, to bring you guys all the content that you want and hopefully entertainment that you want. So we'll talk about some matchups. Not a ton of ranked matchups, obviously, in week two or week three, but I think there were definitely some matchups that punched well above their weight class and became much better games than we thought. So we got all we wanted and more. And we'll chat through some of that. And we'll start off with an absolute banger. As you guys know, Jose and myself, Jose was a guest on our podcast this past weekend, live from Ann Arbor, where we were at the Michigan Texas game. And Big Noon Kickoff was there. College Game Day was there. Michael Phelps was a guest picker. Matthew McConaughey was a guest picker. It was absolutely electric. So without further ado, we'll jump into that game. Final score of 31-12 in favor of the Texas Longhorns, and a fantastic game front to back. I do want to give flowers to the Michigan Wolverines and their fan base. I went to the Red River rivalry last year, one of the most, you know, hate-filled rivalries in the country, and you have that unique aspect of it being 50-50, so it's just always loud in there. So I wasn't sure how this Michigan crowd was going to stack up. Obviously, we knew it's the biggest stadium in the country, but the atmosphere delivered and then some. So shout out to the students at University of Michigan. Shout out to all the fans, season ticket holders, and shout out to the about 25,000 Texas fans that came there and made it an absolute riot, singing the eyes of Texas afterwards. So great atmosphere all around. Could not have been more pleased with the experience. Two fantastic universities, two blue blood programs, and I was fortunate enough to come out on the winning end of that this weekend. But we'll jump back into it. Just wanted to let that be known before we started. Another great game from Quinn Ewers. He was 24 for 36 for 246 yards and three touchdowns. The thing I really liked about Quinn's game is you just see he's in total command of that offense, and he's not a statue in the pocket. But at the same time, his feet are calmer than they've ever been. So you can see his feet are always telling you where he's going to be. He's predictable in a good way. But then you see those athletic plays where he's getting out of the pocket, that first touchdown to Gunnar Helm. And even before that, that first touchdown that got called back to DeAndre Moore. You just see he's so fluid. He's so calm. His pulse looks like it's about 10 beats per minute. And he's dissecting the defense. I think there's probably one ball the entire game that was really in danger. Other than that, his other 11 incompletions were out of danger, either throwaways or kind of off platform things or drops and whatnot. But a fantastic game by Quinn. Really excited to see him keep growing. If you noticed, even though he didn't put up a massive stat line like a Jackson Dart did in the first 2 weeks, most of the major betting sites and books have Quinn as the Heisman favorite going into week three. So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, not too much to say there. As expected, Quinn looked fantastic. The X factor that I mentioned in our episode 2 was Jarrett Gibson, the freshman running back for Texas. He only had 10 attempts for 36 yards, but he did have a touchdown that was crucial in putting Texas up by 2 scores in the first half. Again, not a ton to say here. Jaden Blue went down early in the game. He had his ankle rolled up on. Looks like he'll be good to go. But obviously, as most of you know, Texas had their starting running back and their third or fourth string running back both go down with season-ending injuries in the first week of camp. So already thin at running back. And Jaden Blue goes down, who's their starter now. And Jarrett Gibson stepped in, had a couple of 10 or so yard runs, including the touchdown run. So it was really good to see him as kind of that every down back that we thought he would be. Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue are more of the home run hitters, kind of like Donovan Edwards, we'll talk about on the Michigan side, where they can be every down backs, but for the most part, they're more of that specialty. They're going to catch passes, they're going to hit home runs, and kind of hit those off tackle plays, not necessarily running right up the middle all the time. They'll kind of, run the stretch plays, run a little that outside zone with those running backs. So it was good to see Jared Gibson in there. And then the big one, 2 for 2 on player of the game, tight end Gunnar Helm, 7 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown, was absolutely fantastic. Lost to Tavian Sanders last year, who was one of the best tight ends in Texas history. We thought Gunnar Helm was going to be more of an inline blocker, and we thought Amari Niblack, transferring in from Alabama, was going to be the receiving threat in that tight end room. And Gunnar Helm has done both. He's been fantastic through 2 weeks. Again, inline blocking, being that second or third option out of the passing game, and then yards after the catch. You saw him shake a couple of defenders. You saw him run over a couple of guys. Just had an all around monster of a day. And talking about him being that second or third target, that's one thing I wanted to go back with Ewers is he was doing a really good job of going through his progression, feet and eyes in the right places. First guy's not there, second guy's not there, hitting that running back or hitting Gunnar Helm out there. I thought he looked really good and really calm going through his progression. So he wasn't locking on one and it was just open all the time. That Michigan secondary is as advertised. Will Johnson shut things down for the most part. You got Makari Page back there. They were good as advertised. So it wasn't just, dink and dunk hitting those first reads for Quinn all night. And a fantastic job by him. Flipping it to the Michigan side, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I want to start with that because you log on to Twitter Sunday and Monday, and you would think Michigan is 0-2 and lost by 50 points, right? There's, people saying this team just sucks. Pack it in for next year. Relax, guys. I think there's a lot of delusions that Michigan was still a top 3 or 4 team after losing 18 guys to the NFL draft. And I think are delusions the other way that they're not even a top 20 team. Can we just meet in the middle here? This Michigan team is not great right now, but this is not the final product that they're going to have. Michigan's going to be a good team in that conversation at the end of the year. The downside for them is they already have this one loss, and they still have to play their rivals, Michigan State and Ohio State, as well as Oregon. So I think they're a 9-3 team, a really damn good 9-3 team that's still going to be around that conversation at the end of the season. But this is not a finished product. We saw Davis Warren get better throughout the game. Still, wasn't what Michigan fans want him to be. He was 22 for 33, 204 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He's a walk-on. We thought Alex Orji was going to be the starter. It is what it is. I know that's a dumb thing to say, but it is what it is at this point, right? He's the best option for them. He can play. We saw, again, throughout the game, he got a little better, especially at the end. You saw him scrambling, getting out of the pocket and making some completions downfield because he was abysmal in the first half, but we saw him come alive a bit in the second half. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think they're going to have an offense like that with J.J. McCarthy, obviously, but you're also not going to turn the keys over to Alex Orji because the kid, he's not going to throw the ball. And so you got to find a middle. And at some point, if you want to, you can give Jaden Davis a shot, who is higher rated recruit than both of those guys, kind of a dual threat freshman. So Michigan's got to find their identity there, establish that, and commit to it. And that's one thing that Michigan's really good at. And that's why I don't have a ton of concerns about, them having like a terrible season. They have new coordinators, new head coach, but head coach was internal, brought a lot of familiarity back, even though they had a lot of turnover, 18 guys going to the NFL. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think it's a tough road ahead, and it's going to be certainly the toughest season they've had in a little bit. But you just went to 3 straight college football playoffs. You just won a national championship, right? Like, there's no more up to go. It's either stay the same or roll back a little bit, and we're just seeing them roll back a little bit. So they'll improve throughout the season. They'll find their identity. One thing that I think they really need to do are 2 things, one on offense, one on defense. The playmakers have to touch the ball more and in more creative ways. So Samaj Morgan, Didn't touch the ball a ton. I think he had 5 catches. He ended up having that touchdown at the end, but he wasn't getting the looks that I thought he would. He was mostly special teams, tunnel screens, things like that in his freshman year. I really thought he was going to play a bigger role right off the bat in his second year. So I look for him to get more involved in the offense as the season goes on. He's an explosive guy, and it'll take some of the pressure off of Colston Loveland. In that same vein, we got to figure out Donovan Edwards. He only had 8 attempts for 41 yards. Obviously, it's tough for Michigan when they got behind early, 24-3 at half. You can't commit to that running game that you've had for the past few years. You got to change things up. And so I think we saw that. And then again, Khalil Mullings is more of the bigger every down back for Michigan. And so I think you got to get back to finding what Donovan Edwards' niche is and utilize him in a way that's best for him and the team because he's too explosive of a weapon, too experienced, too good to, only be touching the ball 8 or 9 times a game. I know he had some catches too, but just not getting the ball to the playmakers. Colson Loveland's catching the ball a ton, and he's pretty much it right now for Michigan. And we kind of knew coming into the season that those are going to be 2 guys, Edwards and Colson Loveland. Got to get him some help. Davis Warren's going to settle in a little bit. He's not going to be J.J. McCarthy, but he's also not going to be Deacon Hill or Cade McNamara at Iowa, right? He's gonna make mistakes. He's not young, but he's not experienced at the same time, right? He's been there, but a walk-on guy hasn't got a ton of reps. So you got to find that identity. You got to decide, hey, this is where we're going to go and stick to it. The other thing on the defensive side of the ball that I was a bit disappointed in is missing a lot of tackles. And so this was something that Texas really struggled with last year. And they actually looked really good in their first 2 games with tackling in space from the safeties and the cornerbacks. Michigan struggled here a little bit, whether it was Gunnar Helm, whether it was one of the running backs out of the backfield. Too many times, the first guy wasn't making the tackle and sometimes not even getting, slowing the receiver or the running back down. So I will be curious to see, can these Michigan DBs who are great in coverage, can we get back to basics, fundamentals, make sure we're tackling, getting off blocks, and doing things the right way in the open field. So we'll see. I don't think Michigan season's over. We got to relax a little bit, but yeah, kind of what I expected going in. Obviously, always nervous, but I think we expected to be a 2-score favorite at least. So I don't know. Texas is really good. Maybe they're better than people thought. Michigan is still a good team. But again, I think some people are way underselling them. Some people are way overselling them. We got to find that middle. Michigan will get better. We'll be fine. We'll move on from that one. After one last thing, sorry. I know I kind of already talked about it a little bit, but 2 last highlights. Texas, atrocious in the red zone last year, is 11 for 11 to start this season. 10 touchdowns, 1 field goal, 4 rushing touchdowns, 6 passing touchdowns. Really been fantastic to see that improve. That's where this team is going to get over the top, the defensive backfield, and then finishing in the red zone on offense. On the negative side, 2 years ago, we thought, Texas got a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but they didn't finish it off. They weren't getting a ton of sacks. Last year, we really felt like they rounded the corner there and, actually got home and got a lot of those sacks. And then this year we come in and say, hey, this might be the most talented Texas rush defense or edge rushers since maybe 2011, 2012. You got Trey Moore, who had 14 and a half sacks last year, transferred in. You got Colin Simmons, a 4 to 5-star prospect, true freshman. You got Barron Sorrell coming back, Justice Finkley, a lot of experience, a lot of skill. And they've only gotten home one time. Colin Simmons had 1 sack against Michigan. So that's one thing I'll look for improvement out of Texas. Can we get home? Can we put offenses in second and third and long, obvious passing situations? And then your pass rush can get home even more. So I will be curious to see what they can do there. On the Michigan end, positive-wise, we got better throughout the game. We reset those expectations that, hey, it's the same Michigan team, but it's not the same Michigan team. You lost that 23-game home winning streak, but we're going to reset. We're going to get back to square one, and I think Michigan will be just fine. The negative end, kind of what I mentioned with the quarterback play, we thought they maybe ran a vanilla playbook in week 1 against Fresno, knowing that they were playing Texas week 2. But after playing Texas week 2, it looks like maybe that vanilla playbook is more because we don't fully trust our quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks don't have the keys to the offense right now. And so that'll be something to watch for Michigan. Can they start to open the playbook? They had that one flea flicker in the first half. Other than that, pretty straightforward vanilla playbook. And it was tough sledding against the Texas defense, as you guys saw. So that's what I got on that game. Hopefully, a lot of our Coffee and Cups fans happy. I don't think they are because most of them are from the Midwest and probably cheering for Michigan. But one I think that most of us can get behind is Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois 16-14. Northern Illinois kicks a last minute field goal, and then Notre Dame has a last second field goal get blocked to end that bid to avoid the upset. And every coach in the country, all the top 10, top 15 teams are already playing this film saying, hey, we're not going to be Notre Dame. I know Steve Sarkisian came out in his Monday press conference and said, hey, I showed the guys like we've earned nothing yet. We're 2-0 and we got a damn long way to go. We've earned nothing yet. So not the way that you want to be the poster child at Notre Dame, not what you want to be known for. Diving into the game itself, I think what we saw was fairly obvious. Riley Leonard really struggled. He went 10 for 19, 198 yards, one touchdown. Off the bat, it doesn't jump out as an overly horrible stat line, but it looks off, and that's the best way I can put it. You know, we saw it against Texas A&M, went in there, even though they're higher ranked, they pulled off the upset with A&M being favored. Kyle Field's one of the hardest places to play in the country. You come back home for a nice, easy second week game against NIU, and this is what happens. He looked out of sorts, had some good moments, had some bad moments, but I know he's battling some injuries, but definitely some concern for Riley Leonard if he's the guy that's going to put him over the top, right? I don't think he's a guy that's necessarily going to hold them back and say, hey, this season went to waste because of Riley Leonard, but I also don't think, you're going to go into playing USC later in the season and say, hey, Notre Dame is going to win because of Riley Leonard. So he's kind of in the middle there. A lot of hype around him coming in and just didn't live up to in the first two games so far. Another team, their season's not over. A lot of people have NIU being the group of five team in the college football playoff now. And if NIU goes 12-0, wins the conference championship 13-0, gets in the playoff, and Notre Dame goes 11-1, you're in business, buddy. Notre Dame's more than likely in the playoffs. So still a ton to play for Notre Dame, but obviously certainly a concerning game, especially your home opener. I was trying to sneak views at it during dinner after the Texas Michigan game. My girlfriend tells me that I was not very discreet with it, so apology to her and Jose and Danny. I'm just trying to sneak some looks, but apparently I was rubbernecking at the TV. Well worth it. It was a great game down to the end, and we really got to talk about Antario Brown here, the running back from Northern Illinois. Obviously, goes to Northern Illinois, doesn't get all the hype he deserves, but then you look back at his stats and he's been a damn good player for 2-3 years now, over 1,000 yards. Probably a guy that could have transferred out and gone to a bigger school, but wanted to stay and really succeed with this Northern Illinois program, which I think we all know is kind of lost in this day and age of NIL and transfer portal. So kudos to him. He had 20 attempts, 99 yards, and then two catches for 126 yards and one touchdown. Also, I apologize. I read the wrong stats. So Riley Leonard's stat line was worse than I said. I mixed up him and Ethan Hampton, the NIU quarterback. So Leonard went 20 for 32, 163 yards, no touchdowns, two picks. So that's the concerning stat line. I know when I conveyed the original stat line, didn't seem as concerning. That's why Ethan Hampton from NIU went 10 for 19, 198 yards, and one touchdown. Two of those completions for 126 yards and a touchdown to Ontario Brown, the running back. The kid's a bowling ball, and he's fun to watch. He gets him churning, he gets downhill, and he's a tough guy to tackle. So the biggest thing for me was obviously the win, huge. But the fact that Northern Illinois went toe-to-toe with Notre Dame physically was the most impressive part, right? I think that's often the biggest difference between these big programs and smaller programs. There's a lot of athletes, a lot of skill, but these big mean guys in the trenches and the linebackers, right? those are the positions that are hard to compete with the Notre Dames. So it was really cool to see that Notre Dame has a fantastic defense, probably the best safety in the country coming back this year. And NIU went head to head with them. Didn't do anything spectacular on offense, obviously, but didn't make mistakes, dug down, and ultimately beat a really good Notre Dame team that, again, I think is probably going to go 10-2 or 11-1. They'll still be in the college football playoff conversation at the end of the year. I don't think I don't know. I don't know if they make it, and we'll see. Check in Sunday for our college football playoff picks, and you'll know there if I think they're going to get in or not. So 50-50 at this point for me. Game of the week, maybe, besides Texas, was Oregon and Boise, mainly because I called the upset alert there. Didn't end up pulling it off. Oregon kicked a last second field goal to win the game, but great game nonetheless. Again, 37-34 Oregon. Dylan Gabriel, as advertised, very efficient, 18 for 21. He's completing almost 85% of his passes through 2 weeks, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown as well. He looks like a guy that's been starting for 17 years in the NCAA because he has been starting for 17 years in the NCAA. He's got over 150 touchdowns, 15,000 yards. He's a pro, right? You have a guy that had over 60 starts in Bo Nix, and you directly back into a guy that's going to be up around that 50 to 60 start mark in Dylan Gabriel. The one thing I will say with Gabriel is Bo Nix had 2 years in the program, and you saw that second year there was a big jump in the overall team and Bo Nix. So Gabriel won't have that luxury. So can he hit his stride? Can the team hit their stride mid to late season this year? Just knowing that he doesn't have the 2 year runway like Bo Nix did. Evan Stewart had a breakout game, 5 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown, coming off a game where he had 15 yards in his first game with Oregon. He was probably the highest or second highest touted transfer receiver. The question on him was really, is he a good locker room guy? A lot of talk around he quit on Texas A&M, wasn't a good guy in the locker room there, wasn't a great teammate. So we'll see if he can really hone that consistency in Eugene, but the talent was always there. This kid was always going to make big plays. Just a question of, can he do it consistently? Can he be a great teammate? What we're really here to talk about is Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. 2 games into his season, he's averaging over 10 yards per carry and 9 touchdowns. He had 25 attempts for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns this weekend after his season opener where he had 267 yards and 6 touchdowns. This dude is ridiculous. The jump cut when he gets the ball, that one jump cutting up the field or getting skinny and going through the hole up the middle, kid's a blast to watch. Not quite the bowling ball that our friend over at NIU is, but still kind of a bowling ball guy. Built low center of gravity, and I mean, he just gets after it. So I'm excited to see him. The one question I do have about Boise State, because I think they're in that conversation with NIU for being the group of 5 representative in the college football playoff. Can the quarterback play in the overall team form around him and get things done late in the season? So obviously we know in today's day and age of football, more in the NFL than college, the shelf life for running backs is not as long as it used to be. They get beat up. And that's why you see these 2 running back systems so often. You have, Penn State, you have Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Ohio State, you got Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. Texas running a little bit of a rotation out of necessity. I'm missing some. I know there's other ones, but you see that 2-back system way more these days. And so I'll be interested to see if Jeanty can really be a workhorse and touch the rock 25 to 30 times a game and still be fresh late in the season. They're starting quarterback Maddox Madsen, 17 for 40, so under 50%, 149 yards, 1 touchdown. The big thing on him, he obviously beat out Malachi Nelson for the starting role in the spring. So Malachi Nelson, a 5-star USC transfer, we know he's got the talent, but really curious to see what happened between him and Madsen that gave Madsen the starting role. And then I'll be curious to see what that competition is like throughout the season. So is Madsen the cemented number 1 guy all year? is Malachi Nelson, nipping at his heels and potentially could start some games this year. Again, we know the kid's got the talent, and we know there needs to be some relief for Ashton Genty to make sure that this team is well balanced on the offense side of the ball. So I'll really be curious to watch Boise State throughout the season to see where that quarterback play evolves, because that's what's going to hold them back, if anything, right now. They got 4 sacks on Dylan Gabriel, who gets the ball out quick and is a really good runner. So that was, good to see there. For me, it's just about how do they mesh? How does the quarterback play turn out? And, can they put it all together as a team? Crazy stat of the day is this is actually Oregon's first ever win against Boise State. They were 0-3 against Boise State coming into this weekend. I know you all remember the famous LeGarrette Blunt. Holy cow, I can't talk. LeGarrette Blunt punch that was thrown. God, that's got to be 15 years ago at this point. But yeah, this was the first time that Oregon has actually beat Boise State. So I think both teams are really solid. The thing for me is, can Oregon put it together? They got the Civil War this weekend against Oregon State. Clearly a superior team. Oregon State has new coach, new quarterback, new backup quarterback, new everything. But can Oregon put it together? It's at Oregon State, so they're going to have that advantage. But can Oregon put it together and show everybody that they are this number 2, number 3 team in the country that we all thought they were coming into the season? Speaking of teams that need to put it together, Penn State's the next game, one of the last games I want to talk about. They beat Bowling Green 34-27. Obviously, way closer and way more scary than it needed to be. Quite frankly, we all know that. But a couple positives out of this. So, new offensive and defensive coordinator for Penn State, starting from scratch. They gave up 24 points on defense in the first half and only gave up 3 points in the second half. So, check that box. They got a defensive coordinator that understands and can make changes. Don't love them giving up 27 points, obviously, but you see that their coordinators can make those adjustments. And then I thought the scheme on the offensive side was much better than it's been the last few years. So they put Drew Aller in more positions to make plays. The question for me is whether Drew Aller makes those plays consistently. So he's a former 5-star quarterback, or current 5-star quarterback, I guess. He's big. He's got a massive arm. He is athletic enough to get 10, 15 yards when he needs to. He's the total package if he can put it together consistently. He was 13 for 20 this game, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He's a guy that'll dice you up for a drive, and then he'll come out and airmail his tight end by 15 yards in the next drive. For me, the success of Penn State is going to be obviously on his shoulders as the quarterback. Penn State's always an 8-4, 9-3, 10-2 team, but they get down to it at the end of the season. They play Michigan, they play Ohio State, and they're just not up for the challenge. And Penn State's not a school where 9-3, 8-4 is or should be acceptable. They're a blue chip program with the Michigans, with the Texases, with the Oklahomas, with the USCs, all those big schools. And so they expect a lot more than 9-3, 8-4. They want conference championships. They want national championships. So I think this is a really good team to get that done, at least to a semifinal. And then you see where it goes. But it's all going to ride on Drew Aller, right? We know we have Nick Singleton, 119 yards and a touchdown. Katron Allen, 101 yards. And then Tyler Warren, potentially the best tight end in America, with 146 yards, right? Those are the knowns. Tyler Warren's going to line up in line and run you over. He's going to get in the slot and cause problems over the middle. They're going to split him out, and he's going to roast your tiny corners on the sideline and on the boundary. So he's a very versatile and great weapon. The running backs are great out of the backfield, rushing and receiving. Can Drew Aller put it together week in, week out, and be that guy? The other thing for me, in talking about Penn State being a blue blood and 9-3 and 8-4, not being where they need to be, this is James Franklin's 11th season in Happy Valley. He's 88-39, so on average he goes 8-4, 9-3, which is already, it's good, but it's not Penn State standards. And then you dig in and, oh shoot, he's 12-26 against ranked opponents. Then you dig in another layer, and you're like, oh shit, he's 3-17 versus top 10 opponents, right? At some point, it's got to be like the Jim Harbaugh thing where either we say, like, hey, we're going to restructure your contract and you're going to have a 1 year prove it to me deal and you either win it all or we go find somebody else or we just cut ties. Like I just don't think, I have a lot of respect for James Franklin. I don't like him necessarily. He annoys me, but I respect him, right? He was one of the first coaches coming out of the scandals with, Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky. Bill O'Brien came in, did some great things, had an interim head coach. And then while there were still those sanctions and while everything was still very hectic, James Franklin comes in, is a stabilizing force, wins a bunch of Coach of the Year awards in 2016. And then it's kind of been status quo since then. So can Penn State break the status quo? Certainly one of the more talented and experienced teams they're going to have. Both their running backs have been there for a few years now, probably could have transferred out and gone somewhere to be the feature back. They want to be there. They want to be a two-headed monster. Drew Aller wants to be there. He wants to tear it up. Are they going to do it? I don't know. So we'll see with that one. I think I'm not overly worried about Penn State in terms of that score. I am worried about Penn State in terms of can they get over the hump? Can they win those big games at the end of the year and actually be in the college football playoff conversation? I have them as kind of in that 7 to 10 seed range where they get in, they could get a home game in the first round, which would be epic, a whiteout in Happy Valley, first round of the college football playoff. But can they take it to that next level? The last game I want to cover and talk about, which was a quarterback duel that a year ago we all would have laughed at if we said this was going to be a quarterback duel. Syracuse upsets, we'll call it an upset, upsets Georgia Tech 31-28. Georgia Tech was 2-0 coming into the game and ranked 23rd. Syracuse was 2-0 as well. These are two teams I'm really intrigued about for the ACC because it's wide open right now, right? Florida State stinks. They're out of the picture. North Carolina, they're starting quarterbacks out for the year. I still think they're a good team. Clemson's probably going to be the class of the conference, but they did already lose to Georgia, so they have that loss there. You look elsewhere, Miami's probably the best team in the conference. They've been fantastic so far. Cam Ward, who declared for the NFL draft and then said, "Psych, I'm transferring to Miami." Best thing that could have ever happened to Miami because he's tearing it up there. But Miami's the one right now. Clemson's probably the two. And I think the ACC still gets at least two teams in. And so, I think Clemson and Miami can definitely make the college football playoff. If there's going to be a conference that only has one team go, though, I do think it's probably the ACC just with the depth in the SEC, the Big Ten, and even the Big 12 at this point. So we'll see how that shakes out there. But I think the conference is wide open. Anyway, back to the game itself. Haynes King for Georgia Tech, the Texas A&M transfer, 29 for 39, 266 yards and a touchdown, as well as 6 attempts for 67 yards and 2 scores on the ground. Moving over to Syracuse, Kyle McCord, 32 for 46, 381 and 4 touchdowns, which puts him at 735 yards and 8 touchdowns through 2 games. So we're going to start by asking the question, what the hell was wrong at Ohio State? Was it not a good fit for McCord? Was it a culture thing? Was he not confident there? Was the scheme not the best fit? Was the team not the best fit? I don't know, but this guy is coming out and tearing it up. And not just tearing it up statistically, but you look at him on the sideline and on the field last year, and you see fire. He's a fiery kid, but a lot of the times you just see him kind of blank. And he's just kind of there where you see him on the sideline after a touchdown, after a good play, after a bad play. And this dude looks like somebody put a flamethrower under his butt. He's fired up and he is excited and he is tearing it up right now. So I'm super excited. Syracuse was a team that I was really excited to watch in the ACC coming into the season. And that excitement is just growing now. So good on Kyle McCord, good on Haynes King coming out of the transfer portal and doing some awesome things early. Georgia Tech still looks really good, but they have a really tough schedule. So if you look at their schedule, they still have to play Louisville, who is, I think, like 16th or 18th right now. They still have North Carolina, who doesn't have a quarterback but is good. Still have Notre Dame, still have Miami, and then still end the season with Georgia. So it's going to be really tough. If they can win 2 out of those 5 games, that puts them at 8-4, and I think that's a really good season for them. Recently, they just had one of their, if not one of their highest, if not the highest recruit they've ever gotten in a commitment from a 5-star offensive lineman, for next year's class. So good things happening for Georgia Tech. Can they keep it rolling? I think that's something we've seen in the past with them, where they'll have a couple good seasons, they'll get some notoriety, they'll have a Calvin Johnson, and then they'll kind of, maybe a coach will leave, a couple players graduate, and they're back down 5-7, 6-6 for a couple of years. So I am intrigued to see what they do. I think Syracuse has a much easier schedule, so obviously they take the win, and also I think they probably have an easier path forward. But nonetheless, 2 very surprising teams and 2 really good teams that excited to watch both this week and then moving forward in the season. That can do some things and just be fun to watch. I'll finish it up for week 2 with my upset pick. So you already know I talked about the Boise State pick over Oregon that narrowly missed. And then I knew it with every ounce of me that Iowa State was going to beat Iowa because Iowa is a bunch of frauds. They have been for years. No surprise there. The other one, I believe Derek and Jose, and you can go fact check me on episode 2. I believe they both picked Colorado on the upset of Nebraska. And it's funny because I actually started out picking Nebraska to upset Colorado. And then we realized that Nebraska was pretty decently favored in that game. So they took the Colorado upset, and Colorado absolutely got wiped. And a lot going on there. And I don't know if I should do it. Do I want to do it? Should I do it? We're gonna do it. Give me a second. I'm gonna crack a beer and we're gonna talk about Colorado. Cheers. Colorado, man. Your mouth has gotta quit writing checks that your ass can't cash. And every week I think whatever's being talked about for Colorado is a rumor. Maybe it's not true. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but we're done. We're done with that. A couple weeks ago, you saw that Colorado slash Deion Sanders blocked a reporter from the Denver Post from asking questions to the Colorado head coach because they didn't like how he covered the team. I know there's more behind it, but that's a non-starter for me. Week 1, playing North Dakota State, probably the best FCS school of all time, but you have a chance to run out the clock and win the game. Shadur Sanders checks to a play call that he shouldn't have. North Dakota almost comes back and wins the game because of that poor decision and him checking out of that play. Is what it is. They still win the game. Okay. We come in. Now there's more rumors about Dion saying that the band can't play the fight song when Shadur scores because he wants to play the rap song that Shadur released. I don't know if that part's true. Whatever it is, what it is. But the fact that's even being talked about is ridiculous. And then we get into this week. They get stomped by Nebraska. Shadur Sanders leaves the sidelines 2 minutes early. Was he hurt? Was he not? I don't know, but you don't leave the sidelines. And then a video comes out yesterday from Nebraska of the coin toss, and you got Shiloh Sanders up there as a captain saying, "Hey, we're gonna roll your ass. Get ready for the beatdown," and then gets absolutely silenced. And I know Colorado's not the only school that talks, right? Everybody talks. But it seems like it's on another level for them and they can't back it up. And that's what frustrates me is, if Dion really is this Nick Saban that some people think he is, that's one thing. But this team lacks detail, it lacks discipline when it comes to game day. And it's infuriating because Shadur could be playing himself into the number 1 pick. He could be playing himself into the second round because not only does he make those bonehead plays after a great game, But then he comes to Nebraska and loses, and the first thing he does in the press conference is bashes his offensive line. That's not going to fly in the NFL. We know that. We've seen that before. And so Colorado's a program that deserves to be good. It deserves to be seen. They've had a really long stretch of bad. They used to be a damn good team and they deserve it. And I'm concerned that Dion is, again, writing checks that everybody else can't cash, and he's going to leave that program and they're going to be in a hole for a while. He can recruit. There's no doubt about that. But he is not a coach that's going to take you to a national championship, win a national championship. I wanted to like him. I liked him at Jackson State. I thought, damn, this is really good for Colorado. This is good for the Big 12 now that he's in there. It's fantastic. But it's not. The show's over. Either buckle down and win football games, or we got to figure something else out. Shadur is a top 5 quarterback talent. Travis Hunter is probably the best college football player in the country. We went 4-8 last year. Are we going to waste it again? We talk about overhype, underhype, whatever. I mean, I don't even know with this team. There's people that think they're going to go 4-8 again. There's people that think that they're the second best team in the country behind Georgia, including their quarterback, Shadur Sanders. Again, love the confidence. Love the attention that they get for this program, but not everybody on that team can cash those checks. And I just think they're doing it the wrong way. And it's just super frustrating. On the other end of that, shout out Matt Rule for doing things exactly the right way. He built a team at Baylor that wasn't known for being elite. Obviously, Art Briles did some great things. They went through some turmoil. Matt Rule did great things there. He goes to the NFL, doesn't work out, comes back to Nebraska, gets Dylan Raiola, who I'm going to be watching every week because this kid is ridiculous. He's trying to steal Patrick Mahomes' life, his hair, his sunglasses, everything. And he loves it, and Mahomes loves it, and I love it. But he builds programs. I can't say that for Dion. He doesn't build programs. At least he hasn't shown that right now. I loved what he did for the HBCU community. I love the attention he brought. But now it's a clown show at this point. So I don't know. Good for Nebraska. I still don't think they're a college football playoff team just because of how good the Big Ten is, but there's still some people that are very bullish thinking they could be a college football playoff contender this year. Only time will tell. Again, love Dylan Raiola. College football is good when Nebraska's good. So it's good for the sport. It's good for everybody. And I'm going to end my rant there, and we can go on to week 3 games that I'm excited to see. Sorry about that. All right. Week 3, similar to last week, not a lot of ranked matchups, but some matchups that I do think could deliver. First one is one of 2 ranked matchups. Number 20, Arizona versus number 14, Kansas State. Noah Fafita, we know him and McMillan. Fantastic connection. They're an explosive team. Were a fantastic surprise last year, and I think they'll carry that into this year. But I got Kansas State here. I went back and forth. I originally picked Arizona. I like Kansas State here. They're one of my picks to be in that final 2 or 3 for the Big 12, up there with Utah, and maybe not sure who my third team is up there right now, but I think Avery Johnson's a good quarterback. He's a great athlete. He's maturing as a passer, and we'll see where they can go from there. But they're always a well-coached team. They're always going to fight till the end. So I like Kansas State there. No upset coming on that one. The other ranked matchup is going to be number 24 Boston College versus number 6 Missouri. I don't think Boston College has a lot for Missouri here. Bill O'Brien, as we mentioned earlier, came in and turned things around at Penn State, has really turned things around at Boston College as well, and I'm excited for them in the future. But I don't think they're a true ACC contender yet, and I don't think they have a ton for Missouri. On the other side of the ball, again, you have number 6 Missouri, Brady Cook and Luther Burden. Kind of been MIA the first 2 weeks, but the good news is they've outscored their opponents 89-0 through the first 2 weeks. On the good end, you can say they did that without Cook and Burden doing anything. On the other end, you can say, why does Brady Cook have 1 touchdown and 1 pick through 2 games? So I'm not going to read too much into it. They were fantastic last year, even after Brady Cook got booed at his first game at Missouri. I think they're fine. I think skill wise, the number 6 rating is a little high for them. I think they're probably in that 10 to 12 range. But I think the key here is they have a much easier schedule than some of the teams ahead of them. So I look at a team like Alabama, maybe even Texas, Georgia, where they're behind those teams in the SEC, but their schedule is much, much easier. And so they could potentially maybe avoid that upset or two that happens to some of these teams. Oklahoma has the fifth hardest schedule in the country. Bama has the 11th, right? So more room for upsets there, whereas Missouri maybe has a little bit clearer path. So I think 6 is a little high, but I think they're a really good team. I think they handle Boston College pretty easily. Yeah, not a ton to write home about here. One game that I think could be a lot better than people are giving it credit for is number 15 Oklahoma versus unranked Tulane. And this is not just because I'm a Texas fan and I don't like Oklahoma. I think Tulane is severely underrated here. And they've had a good program the last few years. Maybe you could say this year isn't as good as the past couple, but they got really cool uniforms, a really cool logo, and they're a damn good football team. I think, and they're not in the top 3 or 4, but I think they are in that conversation of if things go right, they could be a group of 5 team that is in the conversation for the college football playoff with the new 12-team format. So I think they're a really good team. I think Oklahoma's better. I think they'll win narrowly, but I think this game could give Oklahoma all they want and more. Really looking to see Jackson Arnold uh, continue to take steps of improvement this game. He's had 3 starts, the bowl game last year, which didn't go great, and then the first 2 starts this year where he's been very efficient. But I'd like to see him stretch the field a little more. And, you know, probably they have a top 3 receiving core in the country. You look at Jaleel Farouk, you look at Deion Burks transferring in, you look at Nick Anderson, Brennan Thompson's got some crazy speed, and Andrew Anthony, that was the one I was missing. Their 4 deep is as good as anybody else in the country. So can he put them in great spots to make plays? Can he be accurate with the football? He's just athletic enough to be dangerous. So can they fully utilize his skill set? And does he continue to grow? I think he's been efficient and pretty good through, this first part of the season, but their schedule, as I mentioned, the 5th hardest in the country, is about to get really, really tough after like weeks 3 and 4. So look for him to take those next steps. And if he can, they'll set themselves up well for this first season in the SEC. If he can't, again, this game could be closer than people think and could be an interesting, couple of weeks here. Another game that could go either way, could be a 40-point blowout, could be more than we bargained for, is number 4 Alabama at Wisconsin. Wisconsin obviously isn't what they used to be, but Camp Randall's always going to be a tough place to play. They're always going to be rocking. They're always going to be jangling their keys around. So that's always a tough place to play. But Tyler Van Dyke has not been what they hoped for so far. They almost lost to Western Michigan week 1, won a little more convincingly last week. But I'll be curious to see if Wisconsin can put it together and give Alabama a run for their money. I think either way, Bama wins this, but could be one that's a 7-point game. Could be an absolute train wreck where Bama blows them off the field. So Jalen Milroe, not a lot to say about him. Can he just continue what he's doing? And on the other end, again, can Tyler Van Dyke round into form? Can Wisconsin stop that high-powered Alabama offense under Kalen DeBoer? I don't think so, but will be something to watch. It's an SEC versus big-time, storied Big Ten matchup. So regardless of where Wisconsin's at, still a cool matchup for the sport this early in the season. And I hope it's exciting. I don't think it's going to be that exciting, but it definitely could be. Last couple of games here. I'll point out I already talked about the Oregon State game. Biggest thing for Oregon, they started the season ranked 3rd. After week 1, they were 7th. They are now 9th in the poll. Can they put it together and beat the brakes off of Oregon State, or is it going to be a tight game? Does Oregon State even win potentially at home? The last couple of years, the home teams won. Can they put it together? Can Oregon State pull off that upset and continue undefeated seasons for the 2-team Pac-12 that is going to be coming back, if you saw the news today? But I don't have a ton to talk about there. Dylan Gabriel is going to be good. Can Oregon put it together? Can they pull away? and be that team, really right the ship and move on with their season, get into the Big Ten and be that national championship contender. Colorado State, another big rivalry. Last year, Colorado was a big favorite, and Colorado State gave them everything they wanted and more in overtime. Uh, Colorado obviously ended up winning, but the cheap shot on Travis Hunter, obviously an in-state rivalry, a lot of animosity there. So we'll see if Fowler Nicolosi and his receiving core in that air raid offense for Colorado State can pick apart the Colorado defense minus Shiloh Sanders, and can Shadur Sanders in the offense take it to the Colorado State defense? Let me look up this line real quick because I am curious about what the line is right now. The odds looks like we have Colorado favored by 7. Colorado's minus 250 with an over under of 58.5. So, as I expect and as everyone expects, probably going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to take Colorado State in the upset here. This is my upset for the week because they are a 7-point underdog. I'm exhausted with Colorado. So, go Colorado State. And then last game that I want to touch on that I'm excited for, number 16 LSU versus South Carolina. Again, could give us more than we bargained for. Garrett Nussmeier has been great for LSU so far, everything as advertised, but they haven't got the running game going yet. So that's what I'm curious for with LSU. Can they get the run game going? They are a 7-point favorite in this game, but the thing I'm curious about is the ESPN odds predictor has it at 51% for LSU winning, whereas you looked at a similar game, Texas Michigan, that had a 6.5-point spread, and it was more of like a 65-35 split as far as the percentage chance to win. So curious why the spread is so high, but the odds for the game, talking percentage wise, is pretty much a stalemate. So still think LSU comes out with it, but South Carolina's got some talent, especially on the defensive line. We'll see if they can get after Nussmeier and pull off the upset. But yeah, that's what I got for week 3. Again, really excited. We'll talk more about the NFL in this week's episode. We'll talk about some hockey and we'll get going really in the full swing of these fall sports. I couldn't be more excited. I really appreciate every single one of you guys that have been listening to this and will continue to listen. You know, it's what I do this for. I love talking about sports. And I love hearing your guys' opinion. So comment, follow, subscribe, listen, give us a shout out, get in our DMs. We want to interact with you guys. We love you, and we'll see you Sunday morning, Coffee and Cups team.